Welcome to this bonus session for Sales Mastery 2020. I am really excited, and I feel really blessed that we're going to be able to do something for you that I call flow. What is flow? Flow is something happens that you were not trying to make happen or that you were not planning to make happen, and all of a sudden you go, this is happening. And at Sales Mastery, we are doing these interviews with all of these exceptional people, and you've seen them and you've heard them, and you probably recall the interview with Arthur Brown. And such a powerful interview on massive setbacks to massive success. And he shared his story, and it was extremely profound. One of the things that I believe in is that people know people you need to know. And within about an hour of that interview being over, we got wind that we might have the opportunity to talk to Arthur's sister, and she is with us in studio. Her name is Letitia Russell, and she is the author of the title of this session and a book called The Naked Truth. It is so wonderful to have you here, Letitia.
Thank you
for
so
coming.
much.
And I want to make sure everybody knows my wife, Deb, and Deb is joining us for this in-studio interview with Letitia. And we're excited about just having a combo.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So we saw the cover of your book, and there was your website, and it just grabbed our hearts. And I would love for you to start by telling your story.
Absolutely. Thank you first for having me. I really appreciate it. But again, my book is The Naked Truth, From Pain to Triumph. And the reason, let me go with first why I chose that title. I chose that title because it was just time for me, as I will say, to get naked, right? For my life, I just decided that it wasn't appropriate to share my story. What would people think? Should I be ashamed? And so it was just time for me finally, after several years of hiding it, after now being a mom and a wife, it was time for me to share my story. And not only for me, but for my children and for others that I thought could benefit from it. And so at a young age, I was sexually abused at the hands of my mom's second husband. And my mom never knew what was going on. I never said anything until years later because I was afraid to. I was afraid of if she would leave him. If she didn't, what would that do to me? And I was just afraid to really face what was happening to me at such a young age. And when I say young, it was 7 years old for many years. And, you know, it's tough to say that age because I have a daughter that's 5, getting ready to turn 6, right? And so for several years, I was sexually abused, dealing with that and not really coming to terms with it. Years down the line, I began to get into relationships where I allowed physical abuse to come in, right? I didn't want to face it. I thought it was okay. I thought that meant you love me because I dealt with the physical abuse. And because not only did I deal with the sexual abuse at home as a young kid, my mom dealt with physical abuse. My mom was married 3 times, and each husband was physically abusive. And I watched it. I was the youngest it's 3 of us, but I watched that. So I thought that's what love was. Wow. And so as I got older, I endured that, and I continued to endure it. And shamefully, I will admit now that I even became the abuser. Because at that point, the older I got, I felt like, well, I need to hurt you before you hurt me, right? And we know that's not love. Yeah. We know that that's not how you react to things. And so after years, I decided to just seek counseling about it. And I just decided to start talking about it and owning my truth and no longer being ashamed that these are the things that made me the woman that I am today. And I'm able to truly speak out about it and empower and encourage others that might go through it.
So thank you, first of all, for
Absolutely.
just being vulnerable and being out there. And I think that it's really incredible to go through the process of realizing that shame can be really debilitating, and it can lead to all these behaviors that continue to chip away at your self-esteem, and that it must be really hard to have ordeals that you feel you have to keep internal and inside and carry that burden. For how long did you carry that burden?
Wow, 30 years or so.
So like 37, 38.
I'd probably say about 35, 36 is when I decided to just fully come out and start talking about it.
So what was the turning point? I mean, because I think everybody, and just so we're clear, this is a beautiful moment that was not architected, orchestrated, or planned. It just happened to be 6 degrees of separation, and here we are today having a conversation. I think what I want to do is just have everybody know that we all have things in our life that have been hard, and some harder than others. And my hope in our dialogue with Letitia is that you get a sense of how to move forward, how to forgive, how to trust, all of those things have to be at the outset. So tell us the turning point, the tipping point.
I remember sitting in a Walgreens parking lot, and at that moment, I was filled with anger, right? I said to myself, I want to find him. I want to ask him why. I want to write him a letter and just ask him, why me? And I called a friend of mine. This friend didn't know anything about my story or my past. And I called and I said, I want to find him. Can you help me? And she asked one very important question, and that was, what is that going to do? Right? Mm-hmm. And in that moment, I realized I needed to now make a shift and pivot. And I needed to turn that anger into, now I need to do something else about it. Let me go into help mode, right? Let me start forgiving myself and start sharing my story and being okay with it. And the minute I started doing that, it was a weight lifted. I was able to just really start owning, this is what happened, but it wasn't my fault. Now what are you going to do about it? And so I hadn't thought about the book, but at that point, I just began just journaling and writing things down. And it just allowed me to release that anger that I once felt. I also, at that time, sat my mom down and I told her what I was going to do.
Wow.
And in that moment, my worry was, I'm going to make her uncomfortable, right? I'm going to make others uncomfortable. But what I said to myself was, I was uncomfortable for so many years. I don't frankly care what anyone else thinks or feels. And once I did that, I was good. I was in a good place at that time.
It is one thing to have a conversation with a friend or be in control of, information.
Yeah.
So what was it like to have it printed on a page and really release it and let it go?
It was real. It was real in that moment. I got the books in the mail and I was just like, wow, this is real. There is no turning back now, right?
Right.
It was printed. But at that time, I was in such a good place. I had shared my story numerous times. I was featured in magazines. I'd been in a really good place that once the book came, it was time for me to start selling, right? Share my story. And in an effort of me sharing my story, I've helped people, right? I've had people that have reached out and just said, you just don't know what hearing what you said today or in reading your book has done for me. And in that moment, in those times, I knew that I had done what God called me to do.
Wow. I sit here and I think about words that Deb and I were using last night to anticipate you. And I think some of the words that we talked about last night is we talked about bravery. We talked about boldness. We talked about beauty.
Beautiful.
And how beautiful you are. And I bring this up for a couple reasons. I think one is there's a lot of struggle for a lot of people on inside-outside stuff, right?
It is.
And when we try to be on the outside something that on the inside we're not, we have this kind of conflict. And one of the things that was said as we experienced sales mastery was that success is really an inside-out game. And until you can let the inside out, you don't really attract the circumstances to allow the positive impact that you have.
Right.
So I think through how courageous and brave and bold it is to share that story. And yet, you think about all of us at some level, I think, are broken. You know, at some level we have pain. At some level, we'd like do-overs. At some level, we wish stuff didn't happen.
Yeah.
But the moment that you release the gift of your pain and your triumph to other people, you give them permission to begin their own journey and their own healing process. And I said recently that the best way to have more courage is to be more courageous. Tell us about that. Tell us just, because right now I think it sounds like you are being blessed, and that everybody's being blessed, that here's your story, and it sounds like you have a purpose that you had, it was in you, but it took until age 35 or 36 for that to start to come alive. So what has been for you the positive impact, and what have you heard? What are other stories that you've heard from people that you didn't know it, but you got put in their path, and your story changed their life?
You know, a couple of things. That is giving myself permission to truly live my authentic self, first and foremost. I had to give myself permission to do so. The other things that I've heard were, as of August of last year, I suffer from alopecia, which is a condition where you lose your hair. And August, it happened over a course of 11 or so years. My husband had never seen me without hair. I had always worn wigs or weave. And so I woke up one day and I told him, I'm tired. I'm just ready, right? I can't say the naked truth and I'm owning everything there is about my story, but yet I'm covering up who I really am. And he said, are you sure you're ready to do that? Because mind you, I go to work. I still have a corporate job. I go to work every day. They see me with hair. I said, I am. And I said, and then I want to do it with a photo shoot. And so I called the photographer. I said, I need to do this before I change my mind, right? I need to do this before I change my mind. And that morning I was getting ready and I just cried. I said, I can't do this. I can't do it. I'm not ready. What are people going to say? What are people going to think? And he said, you can do it. And he said, we're going to roll with it. And I did that. And that was yet another moment of just me owning who I am, being okay with, again, everyone has a story. Everyone is broken or has had things that have happened in their lifetime. And this was yet another thing, my book is a boxing thing, right? I take boxes. Absolutely. I take those hits, throughout my life, but I'm still standing.
And swinging.
And absolutely. And so I decided to do this. And even when doing this, I started having people come out the woodwork saying, Letitia, I can't believe that you are truly now really owning and living in your real space, right? I've always seen you with hair. How does it feel? Were you nervous? People would just call me and write me emails and letters and, log on to my various social media sites to just say, you don't know how much you've blessed me. In this moment, I was going through something. And you don't know what you said or did has encouraged me to step out. And just hearing those things, those words, is again what I need sometimes even for me to know that I'm doing this for a reason, for a purpose. My little girl looks at me now because there were times that my husband would leave the house. And when he would leave, let me take this word. Let me just take it off. It's just time. And she would be, as a young baby, she would look at me and say, Mommy, you're so beautiful. And it's just, again, I knew that I couldn't continue to lie because that's what I was doing in front of her. And so it was just, when I just decided to peel back the layers of things that had happened, it just, more abundance, right? I just began to continue to be blessed with everything that came my way, and I was ready to receive it. I am open with having conversations with my mom, with my brother who had never shared his story before. It was just a bonding moment. And that within itself gave me even more purpose to continue doing what I'm doing today. And that's just speaking out about it.
So many people, I think human nature, we resist flow. So what advice do you have for others? You know, what would you say when it comes to us trying to go against?
Yeah. Go against the grain sometimes.
Yeah.
My advice is get out of your own way.
Mm.
Right? Sometimes we are who hold us back.
We are.
As soon as we step back and step out of the way and just let it be and be still, you'll be amazed at the things that happen. The other thing that I will say is going through all of the things that I had gone through in life, I always say now is you haven't had better and you haven't had best until you've had better. And what I mean by that is so many times we say, well, he's not doing this to me. He's not hitting me, right? He's not doing various things, so he must be a good catch. I'll just settle for him until someone else comes along. No one else is going to come along until he's out of the way. You're missing your blessing. And so I always say that just don't settle. Be still, be patient, and be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And until you've done that, you won't start to receive those blessings that are meant for you.
No, that's that's monstrous. So let me tell you an observation I have, and I think I can apply it to my life. I can apply it to thousands of people that every month we get a chance to have conversation with or teach, and I can certainly apply it to what I'm hearing from you and what I know about my wife. And I think one of the things that's interesting is the culture generally avoids the hard conversations. And one of the things that I've learned is that the longer you avoid a hard conversation, the harder it gets. And I don't know how long you thought about talking to your mom, but that was a hard conversation.
Yeah, it was.
And, and you take it down to a business scenario, and there are salespeople that probably should have a hard conversation with a client because the client is not being reasonable or running into life. And then there's parents that I don't think have the hard conversations with their children for a host of reasons.
Yes.
And it seems to me that everybody runs from the hard conversation rather than having confidence and hope and faith that this is what I need to do. And on the other side of hard is joy and freedom, because at least for me, several of the hard conversations, when the conversation's over, it's kind of like I go, I wonder why I waited so long.
Yeah.
So what is your take on that? Because I think, and the reason I'm asking this is because I think that if somebody has a level of shame, the hard conversation isn't easy, especially when it involves having to address either a perpetrator or somebody involved that was codependent or maybe didn't know and wish they had known. So what do you tell people? I mean, the naked truth is, I love you, I want to be honest with you, and I want to share something with you. And if you do it that way and you say what you mean, but you say it lovingly, it seems like that releases this pent up just weight. So how did you get up for the hard conversations, and how do you stay up for the hard conversations? Because you probably get a lot of hard questions.
I do. How do I stay up for the hard conversations? Are people like you who want to hear the story, right? Mm-hmm. People that know that hearing the story will in turn help someone else who's afraid and struggling with and asking themselves, is it my fault? How do I actually tell that loved one? How do I face my attacker? And so that's how I continue to get the courage to day say what happened and tell my story. Initially, it was hard. It was, I don't think people will believe what actually happened, because on the outside, they see this strong woman, career woman, and they just see me smiling all the time. And this can't happen. Like, you can't sit here and tell me Letitia has gone through all of this. And so even my closest circle of many, many years didn't know until they picked up the book. And so I had a really good friend of mine who we grew up together. And I'd probably call it 2 months ago. Said, Letitia, I finally read your book. And the reason I didn't read it at first is because that meant I had to face this truth of I was in your life at that time and I didn't protect you.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't think about it like that. I just kept saying, I can't believe you didn't read my book. Why didn't you read my book? But when she said it, I said, wow, I needed to pull myself out of the equation and then tell her, it's okay. It was my choice not to share. You would not have known what I had gone through. So it wasn't a matter of you didn't protect me. I didn't let you in to do so, right? And so I think that's the hardest part, is you then having to explain to family and or friends, why didn't you tell me? You know you could trust me, but it had nothing to do with trust at that point. It meant when I got ready to tell my story, I had to be comfortable with sharing it and own now that this happened to me. It's out now.
Yeah.
There's no turning back.
Yeah. Wow.
You seem fearless.
Thank you.
Do you still
Wow.
have those things that suck your breath away that are the next hurdle and the next challenge?
Yes. If I'm being fully transparent, I've been married for 6 years. And, you know, a spouse, we have disagreements, right? Things are not going to always be perfect. But my struggle is I don't like conflict, and conflict isn't always bad. I'm okay with conflict outside of the home. But my thing is, I am working on that myself with, it's okay that my husband and I might disagree in front of the kids, as long as there's no hitting, as long as there's no, just yelling and things of that nature. And I have to continually tell myself that it's okay that we have positive conflict, because your kids need to see that things aren't always pleasant. You still love each other,
Yeah.
but things are not going to always be pleasant. And I have to continue to talk myself into that, and knowing that it's okay versus running away from it for the sake of my children, me not thinking they are going to encounter what I did. So it's that protection, you're trying to protect your children from what you went through.
So I think it's interesting, just as we kind of turn the corner on this, I think it's interesting when we talk about conflict, because conflict avoidance perpetrates more pressure, more internalization, potentially more conflict. And yet conflict resolution or management in an unhealthy way does the same. So one of the things that is interesting is that when two people really, really care, and two people really, really love, and two people are really, really attracted, the desire is not to make anybody bad and wrong. The desire is to have discussion as adults and work through whatever's there. But if there's a fundamental dislike and we're still together, or we settled for something, like you said earlier, that we shouldn't have settled for in a relationship, or whatever the host of examples might be, there is this tendency to have the conflict be more aggressive and have the conflict be more painful and hurtful and whatnot. But I believe at the heart of every relationship is if there is this attraction and love and chemistry, you'll work through the challenges. And I think modeling it is important. And then I think the other thing is boundaries. That I'm sure that through all of this, you've learned the power of the boundaries that you're going to have in your life, and those boundaries, are the sum total of your life experience, and your boundaries the same, and my boundaries the same. And I think people need to understand that boundaries create respect.
It does.
And the person that has no boundaries is disrespected. And the person who has boundaries is respected. And I think one of the things we want to model for our kids is respect.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
wow. So.
Are you a counselor?
No.
We've been to our share.
We qualify to counsel just based on how long we've been counseled. But no, it's interesting. We all have journeys. I lost my first wife to breast cancer, and Deb lost her fiance to a heart attack on a bike ride, and so we both came from a position of loss, and yet triumphed over that loss with a modern day love story, but we still have to have the same thing. We have to have boundaries on our time with each other. We have to have boundaries on what we say, how we say it. We have check-ins. If I give her a bad look, like a little aggressive look, what do we do? What do we do when I give you a bad look? We go like this, and we go.
It's to keep us connected,
and it just
even when we're having a
settles
moment.
everything. Awesome. It settles everything. And we're also big on gratitude. Are you big on gratitude?
I am.
Yeah.
Very.
So we, anytime, anywhere, any place in the world, and Deb did it this morning. I wasn't even awake yet. And I'm like, my eyes are all heavy. And she looks at me in bed and she goes like this. And all this is code for what are the 3 things that you're most grateful for right now. And I'm like waking up. And then we'll do it late at night, or we'll do it in a Uber, or we'll do it at the office, or we'll just stop when things feel hairy and they feel like they're getting out of control. And then the quid pro quo is she does it to me, I do it with her, and vice versa. You effervesce
Yes.
with passion and gratitude and hope.
Thank you.
And you have light behind your eyes that I can just see and feel. And it is powerful to see how your story is changing lives. What do you want to do with it? What's your ultimate hope?
My ultimate hope is to really take this, I always say and speak domestic, internationally. I really just want to get out there and have this as just my journey and being able to share it all over the world. And so that's ultimately what my goal is in life. And so I'm just praying that I can do that at some point.
So guess who's a big dreamer?
Oh, absolutely.
Where would you
And
like to take this? To the edge of the globe?
all around the world? And
All
she
right.
will. So I know you have 2 daughters. Well,
Yes.
4.
4, 2 bonus
4.
babies. Yeah, not babies. I keep saying bonus babies, but 2 bonus daughters. They're 24, and then 2 babies.
So tell me, what is it you wish for them? Like what is that message and that theme that you are raising strong young women today?
Good question.
Such a good question.
It is, right?
It's like a mic drop question.
You know, the biggest thing is that they can do and be anything they want to be. And I say that, and it's so important to me because I was not necessarily afforded that opportunity. There were things that I had to learn on my own. I looked to my big brother, Arthur, to really instill some of those important things, you know, such as good credit, being able to manage from a business perspective, those things. And so, and every morning I tell them, you're beautiful, you're smart, and you can do and be anything. And so that's important to me. And just knowing that I am here to allow you to bump your head and make mistakes, but I'm going to be here to pick you up and you know, making sure that we dress up those wounds as well, right? Because you have to learn. And the more that I'm there to catch you and say, it's okay, I don't want you to fall, you'll never learn. And so I want them to be able to do that in a safe environment. And just knowing that sky's the limit. You can absolutely get out there and not be afraid to just experience life itself.
I cannot wait to see what happens with this. We have a global audience from all over the world watching us, close to 50,000 people and 20 different countries. And you're already starting because now we are taking you global. So 2 things as we wrap up. It's been a beautiful dialogue, beautiful conversation. If somebody wants to connect with you, what's your website?
My website is www.letitiabrussell.com. B as in Brown.
Brown.
www.letitiabrussell.com.
And it's S-H-A, Letitia.
Yes.
Yeah.
LATISHA.RUSSELL. First and last name.
I love it, love it, love it. And then the book is available?
It is. It is available on my website. And then it's also available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon for those that don't want the paperback book. Oh. And then email is info, I-N-F-O, @letitiabrussell.com.
I am hopeful that you are able to talk to a lot of people for the rest of your life based on this conversation we had with you today.
Thank you so
it's
much.
Been joyful.
I'm so grateful.
It's been joyful. I want to hug.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right, man, that was worth everything. And so thank you for watching this beautiful Sales Mastery bonus conversation with Letitia Russell. And wow, do you have a final thought, babe?
No,
it's just blessed.
Yes, grateful.
All right,
Grateful.
take care, guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for watching.